You do know there is a reason why God created you and I with 2 ears and 1 mouth. You do know that, don't you? Why, it was the mantra that a certain high school teacher would have to say and remind her students of every single day. And for whatever reason, every time she would say it, she was looking at me. I don't know why. You do know there is a reason why God created you and I with 2 ears and only 1 mouth. We know the reason, because listening is so incredibly difficult. Listening is almost becoming a lost art, if you will. To truly listen to another seems almost, if not impossible, close to it these days. Because there's so much other stuff. There's so many other noises that demand our attention. So you and I can be having a conversation with the person right in front of us, and we can be listening to them, and yet so oftentimes then in the course of their conversation and their communication with us, there is the ding, the dreaded ding. You know what I'm talking about. The little noise that you have, whatever that might be, on your so-called and mine smartphone. And what do we automatically do? We automatically look at the ding, even though there's somebody right in front of us who has something to say. And yet for that brief moment, somehow we have determined it that the ding, that message, is more important than the message, the voice, the person right in front of us. That's just one example of the reason why it's so incredibly hard and difficult to listen, truly listen to people today. There's many others, of course, and oftentimes as we're listening to people, we are eager to help them, especially if they're telling us about struggles or difficulties that we're having. And so we will interrupt them before they're done with the story because we have the answer. We know what it is that they need. And if they would just listen to us, why then all of their problems and difficulties would be solved. That certainly is another reason why it's so hard to listen. We jump to conclusions. We want to help, and so we provide answers before they're necessarily needed. We have all these distractions that are going on around us, and so as a result of that, we need more than just 2 ears. And so I would correct my high school teacher, and I would say to her that God had a reason why He gave us 5 organs to listen with and only 1 mouth. Because there are more than just our 2 ears that we are invited to listen with. We have our 2 eyes. You see, if we just use our eyes to be attentive to the nonverbal communications that are happening as well, why then we can all of a sudden truly listen to the person that is in front of us or behind us or next to us, because of course so oftentimes the nonverbal communication speaks volumes. For those of you who are married, you know what I'm talking about. It's called the look. Right? And you automatically know when you see the look that either something is incredibly right and beautiful and wonderful, and a lot of times, not so much. So we need to use our eyes to listen as well. And then we need our heart. The 5th and perhaps the most important organ that God gave you and I, that has the capacity to truly hear what is being spoken in our midst. Why do I speak of listening on this, the 22nd Sunday in Ordinary Time? Because It's because it's what Jeremiah needed to do, because he was a prophet. He was asked to be a prophet. He was duped by the Lord. He should never have listened to God. Why? Because people are laughing at him. He is a ridicule. People don't want to listen to him because everything he says is like bad news. He is a Donnie Downer from the word go. He should never have listened to God, but he did. And as we are told in today's first reading, why Jeremiah says, I can't even keep it in as much as I don't want to speak on your behalf, why it burns within me, because Jeremiah was always listening to the Lord, because Jeremiah sought for himself and the people around him a deeper meaning of life. And so because of that, he allowed his heart to listen to God, inviting him to do the unthinkable, and that was to preach a message that was not going to fall upon other people's ears with much welcome. And then there's Peter. Peter's horrible at listening as well. Not only did he just get it right last week, where he had the right answer, where he was able to answer Jesus' question, who do you say that I am? And all of a sudden, why, less than 5 minutes later, he's already becoming an obstacle to our Lord. Why? Why was Peter an obstacle? Why did Jesus refer to him as Satan? Because Peter wasn't listening. He wasn't seeking the deeper meaning of life. What is the deeper meaning? Whoever wishes to follow me must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. Because whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. The deeper meaning in life, my friends, is you and I being attentive to the voice of our Lord, who is constantly speaking to us. And Jesus, likewise, just like Jeremiah, was a Donnie Downer. And that's all that Peter heard. That's all that Peter heard, was that Jesus was going to have to go to Jerusalem to suffer and to die. And because of that, Peter, he had just gotten it right. Think about this. He is so incredibly proud of himself, and he is going to defend Jesus at all costs. And so before Jesus even gets finished, Peter's heart is beating so hard and so loud in his chest that he just interjects and says, God forbid, Lord, this will never happen to you. And because his heart is beating so loudly in his chest, and because he is so much closing off his ears, he doesn't hear the end of the story. He doesn't hear the end of the story. Did you hear the end of the story? Did you use your ears? Did you use your eyes? Did you use your heart as Jesus spoke to us the message tonight? Did we hear the end of the story? Yes, no doubt we heard that Jesus was to go to Jerusalem and that he was to suffer greatly and he would die at the hands of the Pharisees and the scribes. But what else did Jesus say? That 3 days later, he would rise again. Peter, in his rush to come to Jesus' defense, Peter's desire to have the right answer to solve the problem of our Lord, didn't hear the end of the story. He didn't hear about resurrection. So that's why Jesus has to take Peter aside. And oftentimes that's what our Lord has to do with you and I as well. He's got to take us aside because, of course, there's so much noise and there's so many distractions and we have so many answers already and we are ready to solve the world's problems that oftentimes we don't hear the true answer, which is the deeper meaning of life, and that is we must be willing to deny ourselves, take up our cross, and follow in the Lord's footsteps. And that denial and that taking up of the cross is any time that you and I are willing to put others before ourselves. To put others before ourselves. That's what the world doesn't yet quite understand. And that's oftentimes where leaders, both in our country and our world, haven't quite yet understood that the message of the gospel is one of denial, and it's one of taking up one's cross, and it's one of following in the Lord's footsteps. because that's where we will find the deeper meaning of life that we all seek. And the reason why denial of self, taking up one's cross, enduring the sufferings that come with parenting, that come with whatever vocation it is that is ours, to be able to do that, we do it. Why? Because at some point in time, we chose to listen to the end of the story. And we too, for some odd, crazy reason, recognize that God gave us 2 ears and 2 eyes and 1 heart and only 1 mouth. So let us use those 5 organs wisely. Let us listen to the stories of the people around us. Let us listen to those who are protesting. Let us listen to those who are marching. Let us listen to those who are in our midst, who are suffering in any way. And let us be ever mindful that their message needs to be heard. And we need to listen with our ears and our eyes and our heart. And when we do, why, then we will discover that their story is not unlike ours, that we all have to suffer, that we all have to die, but we believe we will all rise again. So let us be attentive. Let us not be afraid to listen.